Hare Krishna, everyone. So it is my great honor, privilege, and pleasure to be here once again in the auspicious Bhaktivedanta manner in the association of the wonderful devotees here. This time nice to be with many of the residents. Last time I was here, you were all locked away upstairs, so it's nice to see you've been unlocked a little bit anyway, and to be in your association. So today is the auspicious occasion of Vamanadev. Although it's a little confusing because today is Ekadasi. Well, yesterday was Ekadasi, but it wasn't suitable for fasting, so today is actually Mahadwadasi. So we're observing Ekadasi today, and we will be breaking fast tomorrow. Today is also a half-day fast, and so sometimes the cycle of the moon is a little bit different and isn't like the strict Western calendar. 25th of December every year is Christmas, It can be adjusted and change around. So, but we are celebrating the auspicious appearance day of Lord Vamanadev, and also when Vamanadev appears, of course, Jiva Goswami, his appearance day is there. Tomorrow is the appearance day of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which is another auspicious occasion. And usually there's a day in between, I think, before the disappearance day of Haridas Thakur. But then we have Haridas Thakur's disappearance day. And then I think Monday is Bhadra Purnima. So it's just a weekend of nectarian festivities, as Srila Prabhupada used to say. Every day in Krishna consciousness is a festival. So, like that, every day is an opportunity to celebrate the Lord and or His devotees. So we're going to read from the 8th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 18, and we're going to read verse 12. Chapter 18 is Lord Vamanadev, the dwarf incarnation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Lord appeared in His original form, with ornaments and weapons in His hands. Although this ever-existing form is not visible in the material world, He nonetheless appeared in this form. Then, in the presence of His father and mother, He assumed the form of a Vamana, a Brahman dwarf, a brahmachari, just like a theatrical actor. Purport. The word nataha is significant. An actor changes dress to play different roles, but is always the same man. Similarly, as described in the Brahma Samhita 5:33 and 39, the Lord assumes many thousands and millions of forms. Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadam, Anantarupam, Adyam Purana Purusham. He is always present with innumerable incarnations. Ramadi Murtishu Kala Niyamena Tishtana Navartaram Akarod Bhuvaneshu Kentu. Brahma Samhita 5:39. Nonetheless, although He appears in various incarnations, they are not different from one another. He is the same person, with the same potency, the same eternity, and the same spiritual existence. But He can simultaneously assume various forms. When Vamanadev appeared from the womb of his mother, he appeared in the form of Narayan, with 4 hands, equipped with the necessary symbolic weapons, and then immediately transformed himself into a brahmachari, vatu. This means that his body is not material. One who thinks that the Supreme Lord assumes a material body is not intelligent. He has to learn more about the Lord's position, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tatvataha. One has to understand the transcendental appearance of the Lord in his original transcendental body. Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Brahma Samhita 5:1. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Lord Vamanadev ki jai. Om Agana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militangena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Gena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Brindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Verse again. Yat tad vapurbhati vibhushanayudar avyaktachid vyaktam adaraya darihi babhuva tanaiva sa vamano ivatu sampashyator divya gatiryatanata. The Lord appeared in his original form with ornaments and weapons in his hands. Although this ever-existing form is not visible in the material world, he nonetheless appeared in this form. Then, in the presence of his father and mother, he assumed the form of Vamana, a Brahmin dwarf, a brahmachari, just like a theatrical actor. Jai. So, this pastime of Lord Vamanadev is, in one sense, unlimited, and there are so many wonderful points to be learned from this pastime, and it spreads over something like, starts in the 11th chapter, 10th chapter in one sense actually, goes all the way up to the 23rd chapter. So there's quite a lot of chapters for this pastime to unfold. And with many of the Lord's pastimes, there's always some backstory So we've joined in here where the Lord is appearing as the dwarf Brahman. Well, actually he appears first as Narayan in his Narayan form. And Srila Prabhupada makes the point in the purport, and also that anyone who doesn't understand that the Lord's form is not material is not very intelligent. This is a very nice way of saying something else. But basically, so, not, or as Prabhupada would often say, they're pulling from a poor fund of knowledge. Prabhupada so eloquently calls someone stupid, You just, it's a poor fund of knowledge that you have there, sir. What can be done? So, Prabhupada, very expert. So, of course, reading this verse in purport reminds of the pastime that Srila Prabhupada would tell of Prime Minister Gladstone, and how this very powerful man came to see the Prime Minister, and the secretary said, no, sir, he's very busy right now, you'll have to wait. And he thought, wait, I have to wait? Why do I have to wait? I'm a very important man. And he said, no, he's very busy right now, you'll have to wait. And after some time of waiting, the man became curious, and he kind of snuck down the hallway, and he saw that the door to the Prime Minister's office was slightly ajar, so he looked inside, and when he looked inside, he saw that the Prime Minister was down on his hands and knees, and he was going and he had his granddaughter on his back, and he was playing like a horsey. And so Prabhupada says, so do we think that the Prime Minister has actually become a horse? No, of course not. He said, but to reciprocate the love with his granddaughter, then he will play the part of a horsey and get down on his hands and knees. So, in one sense, you could say, is the Prime Minister of Britain one of the most powerful men in the world. And here he is playing like a horsey. So, we see that now the Lord is taking his form as a dwarf Brahman, as a little brahmachari. So, we shouldn't think that then the Lord has become some little dwarf, like we won't mention all the different ways that dwarfs are exploited in the world. But, it's not that he's become half a man or less than a man. He's still the Supreme Lord. So like that, it's an important point for us to understand that the Lord comes for a specific purpose. And why did Lord Vamanadev appear? Well, there are many reasons in one sense, but if we go into the pastime. So I was told I have until 10:30, is that right? None of you said 10:30 sharp? Sorry, Niskin should approve. Sorry, 8:30, right? Okay, so I have 25 minutes to extrapolate on 12 chapters of the Bhagavatam. So we're going to talk really fast. Is everyone okay? You're going to be able to follow me? I'm going to talk, it's like really... So it all started with what? What did it start with? How did this pastime start? Thank you. Perfect answer, yes. But was the beginning really the beginning? Of course, in the Bhagavatam, the beginning's never the beginning because we can never really find the beginning. But let's say it started with the churning of the milk ocean. And that was a little bit of a truce between the demons and the demigods. But of course, the truce between the demons and the demigods doesn't often last very long, does it? Because if one side doesn't get what they want, then they declare war. And they wage war. So war was waged against the demigods. And of course, the demigods are always protected by the Lord. Although the Lord is not biased. He's ready to offer his love to everyone unconditionally. But, of course, because the demigods are devoted to the Supreme Lord, then naturally he gives benedictions to them. So this war was waging on. And actually what happened in this war is that things got so intense that the demons were basically being completely annihilated. And Bali Maharaj was in fact killed. He in fact was killed. And so that meant he was dead. And then his relatives were invited to come and fight. And Lord Indra started to chop them down. And the Lord, he then showed his favor And he instructed Narada Muni to go and to tell the demigods to stop. Enough is enough now. You've whooped up on them enough, Back off a little bit. So the demigods kind of left that place. And it's described that Shukracharya, who was the son of, or the son of, anyone knows Shukracharya? For years I've wanted to study the lineage, and I have this chart on the wall, and I look at it all the time, and it's like, if I could just remember, the whole lineage of all the exalted persons in the Bhagavatam, But he's actually the son of, who? Brahma. Well, that's a good answer right there. Yes, that's an intelligent answer. Bhrigu Muni. He's actually a descendant of Bhrigu Muni. And so he's a very empowered personality. So it's described that they carried Bali Maharaj back to the place where they retreated. I forget where it was. Some mountain top retreat. And he actually, by his Shakti and by his potency, he was able to bring Bali Maharaj and many of the other demons back to life. So this is quite some potency to be able to bring people back to life. So Bali Maharaj was so indebted and grateful to Shukracharya that he began to worship him, and he accepted him then not only as his, the guide of the demons, but it's described he also accepted initiation. He began to worship him and to surrender his entire life to Shukracharya, in fact. And because of this mood of devotedness to the spiritual master, he became very empowered. And he won the favor of the other descendants of Bhrigu, the other Brahmanas, and they blessed him with this powerful Brahman Tejas. So Srila Prabhupada describes in the purports there how important it is that we imbibe this mood of worship and honor of the spiritual master, because through the spiritual master, in fact, he quotes Yasha Prasade Bhagavat Prasado, and he says that by worship of the spiritual master, one can become very powerful. If one fully dedicates oneself to the service of the spiritual master, then one can become very powerful. And that's what happened with Bali Maharaj. So in this way, the Brahmins, then they encouraged him to perform a special sacrifice, and he performed this sacrifice. And while performing this sacrifice, some armor came out and a chariot. Now, I've done a few yajnas in my day, and sometimes people take pictures and you see the flame looks like Krishna holding a flute. Anyone's ever seen that? Sometimes you get these kind of things, or someone says, oh, it looks like this or looks like that. But I've yet to perform a yajna where a chariot comes out and some armor and different things. So it just goes to show that in Kali Yuga, Brahmins are disqualified, or at least this Brahmin's disqualified. But these Brahmins, they were pouring ghee, and every time they would pour ghee on the yajna fire, then these different items would come out. And they were all for Bali Maharaj. And so Bali Maharaj became very, very powerful. And it's described that also his grandfather, who is the grandfather of Bali Maharaj? Oh, where did he go? Yes, Prahlad Maharaj. And his father was? Bilochan, yes. So his grandfather, Prahlad Maharaj, also showed up, and he offered him a garland of eternal flowers. And Shukracharya offered him a conch, a special conch. So with this, Bali Maharaj was feeling like, yeah, I'm in the zone now, I got it going on here. I say we go back and challenge Lord Indra again, and you can imagine there was a little bit of a, Lord Indra killed me. You might want a little bit of tit for tat. So they went back to the heavenly planets, and some devotees describe, because I was thinking, okay, so they're the demons, so they're situated in the lower planetary systems, and they go all the way to the heavenly planetary systems. Now, how exactly did they get there? Now, this is an interesting concept. But I was reading in Amalabhakta perused his Bhagavatam, and he describes that they boarded transcendental spaceships. So we also know that they can travel on these different things. Narada Muni travels wherever he likes, and he doesn't even have a spaceship. So for sure, they can travel in so many ways. So they went to the heavenly planets. And in the Bhagavatam, there's this long, verse after verse description of Lord Indra's planet. And I must say, it's very enticing when you read this and then you think, why would they talk so much about how beautiful it is and how opulent it is and all of the apsaras and the beautiful rivers and the trees and the birds, and there's so much opulence, and you think, God, this would be so easy to be attached to that opulence and to that place. In fact, I'm just reading about it and I'm thinking, as Prabhupada said, some of my disciples, they'll be on their way back to the spiritual world, and they'll look over the transcendental airplane and they'll see the heavenly planets and they'll think, maybe just one stop. And so they'll stop off in the heavenly planets. But we'd rather not do that, actually. It's better not to. Yeah, it's going to be hard to do this in 15 minutes, I got to say. But anyway, so they went and they waged war, and they were coming. And Lord Indra, he recognized very quickly that Bali Maharaj was shining like the sun. And he thought he looked so powerful and so potent. And we can see that his army they're ready. And so he went to his guru. And who is his guru? Who is the guru of the demigods? Brihaspati, yes, thank you. And he went to Brihaspati, and what did Brihaspati say? He said, he has worshipped his spiritual master so nicely and has become so dedicated to him that he has gained the benediction of Brahman Tejas. And Brihaspati said, actually, you have no hope. This is not going to end well for you. He said, and the best thing that all of the demigods can do now is flee. So they had to retreat. And it's described there that they can take any form that they like, the demigods. And as we know from many pastimes, they show up they can take any form, basically. And so they all left, which is an interesting point also that, we don't always have to stand and fight. Sometimes intelligence dictates that it's better to walk away from a situation. Sometimes it's better to recognize when you're not in a position of strength, similar to the pastime of Gajendra. He was not in a position of strength. So sometimes it's better to actually accept, well, maybe it isn't my time to be here. And accept what may appear like a defeat and walk away from the situation. Jai Shishi Radha Gokulananda ki jai. Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai. Shishi Gaur Nitai ki jai. So anyway, they did this. They retreated. And Bali Maharaj and the demons took over the heavenly planets. Haribol! You all said Haribol. Was it really? God. Okay, we know whose team you're on here. So he took over the heavenly kingdoms and started to enjoy. And actually, Bali Maharaj then, because he had won the heavenly kingdom, actually it's described that he performed 100 Ashwamedha Yagyas. 100. Now, of course, the only person at that point who had done that before was Indra himself. So here is the king of the demons performing 100 Ashwamedha Yagyas. So it's not as black and white as we try to make it out in the world sometimes, Things are actually quite in a grayish area. You have the king of the demons who's gained Brahman Tejas by worshiping his spiritual master. So it also shows that these principles and processes, sometimes if applied, you still get the benefit, just like Hiranyakashipu. He performed austerity for so many years and he was benedicted. Ravan was also benedicted. So we see that the demons can also be benedicted by performing tapasya, austerity, or working in conjunction with the Vedic teachings. So they're performing Ashwamedha Yagyas, but their intention really is just simply to enjoy the opulence coming from them. So, that's it. That's kind of the end of the story. Yes? No? The demons won. The demigods lost. And it's all over. No. That's not it, because we haven't even gotten to Vamanadev yet, right? So, what happened? Oh, yes. Intervention. Divine intervention happened. And what was the form of that divine intervention? What? Lord Vishnu? Well, ultimately, yes, that's a good answer. Ultimately, not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Lord. But the divine intervention was actually Mother, Mataji. Mother's intervention, Mother's love, right? Who's Mother? Mother of the demigods. And who's the mother of the demigods? Aditi. Yes, Aditi. And Aditi, she was thinking, oh, my children, they don't have a place to live. They've all become homeless. All the demigods have had to flee their home. So her heart started to mourn for her children. And this, because of her mourning, she became very distracted. And of course, she was living in the home with her husband, and her husband was Kashyapa Muni. Yes. Trying to keep you all on your toes. A few people are like, oh, is he going to get to Vamanadev anytime soon, Yes. Kashyapa Muni. So Kashyapa came back home after being away on his own retreat, doing some deep meditation. And he came home to find the house was a wreck. It was a mess, a complete mess, It's like, Aditi, what's going on here? Of course he didn't do that. He was just kind of like, okay, he noticed, but he didn't say anything. Anyway, there's lots of little lessons, in the Bhagavatam, When you come home and you start ranting, what the heck's going on here, It's not going to end well for you, no matter if you're right or wrong. Best is come home, notice, hello, honey. Wonderful to see you. And he immediately inquired, is there something the matter? And of course she expressed, yes, I'm extremely distressed because of what's happened to our children, that they've had to abandon the heavenly planets. And so Kashyapa, he did something. Does anyone know what he did at that point? What did he do? No one knows. He started to preach to her. He started to preach philosophy. There's no need to be attached to these things. They're our sons, but they're not really your sons. They've had so many previous mothers. Material opulence, we don't want to be attached to material opulence in this world. These things are of no use. They simply tie us into the material world. And he was going off on a proper, Bhagavad Gita Sangha, given the large. And he got to the end and he thought, she should be convinced now. And she was still like, that's all cool, man, but it has not touched my heart. I'm still not satisfied. I'm still not feeling what I need to be feeling right now. It's all true. No doubt, everything you've said, my dear husband, is all true, but the problem is still there. And I'm still feeling in my heart sorrow for my children. So again, another powerful lesson that it's, it isn't that, I've had this, seen it over the years many times when someone interacts with someone else who's lost a family member. Sometimes I've literally seen devotees say, no need to mourn for that which is not worthy of mourning. And I think, really? Is this how we're being trained? This is the best we can do at that time, But when we lose someone close to us, regardless of whether we're not this body or not, somehow the body experiences some intense pain and suffering and loss. So it might not be that always the best thing is to give a Bhagavatam class to someone who's in a distressful situation. Of course, sometimes it may be the case. But actually, Kashyapa Muni, he said, okay, no problem, I get it. He said, I suggest that you perform this, I think it's called Payuvrata sacrifice. It's a 12-day sacrifice. And you worship the Lord by performing this through fasting and through prayers and different things. And at the end, he'll be very happy. So you can perform this sacrifice for 12 days. And she was like, really? That's all I have to do? And he said, yes. Now, the question arises, how did he know about this? Of course, he's very learned, but it's described in the Bhagavatam that actually Lord Brahma had taught this to him when he requested it. He also wanted something from the Lord. And Lord Brahma had taught Kashyapa, well, if you want something from the Lord, here's a process for getting it. So it means that also sometimes, even the great souls have been through these challenging situations. But still, it's devotional service. So she performed this sacrifice, and at the end of 12 days, the Lord was so pleased, and she became pregnant, and then she gave birth to Vamanadev. Vamanadev ki. The appearance of Lord Vamanadev ki. And so that brings us to today's verse, which is where he appears. And he appears from the womb of his mother Aditi after her performance of the Payuvrata sacrifice of 12 days. And first he appears as Lord Vishnu. And then he manifests the form of the Brahmin dwarf. Then, of course, all the demigods, they all show up. They're showering flowers. They offer him so many different items. They perform simultaneously the Jata Karma ceremony, and they give him his Brahmin thread and initiate him as a Brahmin, all in one hit. And they give him his kamandalu and his little stick, and so many different items are given. And after some time, Vamanadev, he decides, okay, so let me go and visit Lord Indra. Let me go and visit Bali Maharaj, who is sitting on the throne of Lord Indra. And because at that time Bali Maharaj was performing a yajna, he was also performing a sacrifice. Then he showed up as a Brahmin. And because Bali Maharaj is, although he's the king of the demons, but because his heritage is that of Prahlad Maharaj, then he's also somewhat pious. And he's been serving the Brahmanas, and that's how he became empowered through the service of the Brahmanas. So therefore he wanted to worship this Brahmin who came into the assembly. Of course, all the other Brahmins were looking, thinking, this little dwarf Brahmin is so effulgent. He must be like Agni Dev in disguise, or he must be, Surya. No, they couldn't figure out who he was, but they knew he was definitely special. He was self-effulgent. It was clear that he was someone very special. And Bali Maharaj, he became very taken by Vamanadev. And so he immediately went to him and began to wash his feet, and then he took the water and he sprinkled it on his head. And he said, my dear Brahman, you have come into my assembly, so now I would like to offer you a benediction. Whatever you would like, you can have. He said, I'm the Lord of so many worlds. I can give you cows. I can give you unlimited riches. I can give you a Brahmin wife. I can give you land. I can give you whatever you like. Just say. And Vamanadev said, really? Whatever I like? Now you can imagine if someone comes up to you and says, right, whatever you like. What if someone said that to you? Don't think too hard. Whatever you like, anything. You can have anything. Would we say, please give me prema bhakti? Or would we say, well, maybe there's a few things building up. I'm not quite on that level yet, House would be good for a start, It'd be nice, good car. Anyway, Vamanadev said, okay, anything? And Bali Maharaj said, whatever you want. And he said, all I want is simply 3 paces of land. Bali Maharaj said, I mean, you're obviously young Brahmin, your intelligence hasn't quite fully developed yet, You're just a small guy. 3 paces of land. I can give you an entire planet. Can you imagine if someone could give you an entire planet? One devotee came to me many years ago when he first came, and he said, I want to know, is it possible if I worship Krishna, can I get a planet like Dhruva Maharaj? I said, sure, why not? Just start chanting Hare Krishna, see what happens. Just, if you get the planet, let me know. Make sure I get a place on your planet. Anyway, he kind of gave that idea up some years later, but he's still chanting Hare Krishna. That's the most important thing. And Vamanadev said, no, just 3 paces of land is enough. And he said, well, okay, if that's what you want. But then around that time, Shukracharya, he was like, he had been observing Vamanadev, and he said, no. And he said, Bali Maharaj, come here. No, don't do this. Withdraw. Say no, you're not going to give him anything. Clearly tell him nothing. You're getting nothing. Bali Maharaj was like, I can't do that. This is a Brahmana. He's coming to the assembly. I'm dedicated to the Brahmins. Now, of course, actually, when Aditi gave birth to Vamanadev, Lord Brahma explained to her, no, it wasn't Brahmana, it was Brihaspati. Brihaspati explained that actually in the future, Bali will become weak again when he offends his spiritual master and when he neglects to follow the order of the Brahmanas. Then he'll become weak again. So here's Vamanadev, and now this conversation, and Shukracharya, who is his spiritual master, is instructing him. Tell him no. And he says, no, I can't do that. I've already promised. And he said, according to the scripture, if you don't begin your promise with the Omkar, you can negate it. Confirmed. It's not considered valid. So you can just say to him, sorry, Vamanadev, I didn't say Om, so therefore, tough luck. Too bad. You don't get your 3 paces. And Bali Maharaj said, no, I can't accept that. And he said, well, this is Lord Vishnu, and he's going to take everything from you. Everything. So that means your life is in danger. And it's also shastric that if your life is in danger, you can tell a lie. Everyone got that? Make a note of that, just in case. But that's really the only time you're meant to tell lies, if your life is in complete danger. But Bali Maharaj didn't buy that either. He said, no, that doesn't work for me. And he said, and actually, with you instructing me like this, if this is Vishnu, why are you instructing me? And of course, Srila Prabhupada explains that because Shukracharya is very motivated. As long as he's the guru of this rich and wealthy person, he's dependent on his position. It's like, if he's prosperous, then naturally I'll also be prosperous. And Srila Prabhupada explains, therefore the spiritual master should never become dependent on his disciples. Doesn't mean you don't use or engage in service, whatever they may have, but you have to be very careful not to become dependent or compromised. And Prabhupada also explained that I could have had millions of disciples if I had simply become a little more relaxed with the standards. But no, I was firm with what the standards are. And there's one pastime I was hearing devotee telling of when in New York, in the early days, the devotees brought this famous rock and roll band to meet Srila Prabhupada. And they were saying, to each other, we really hope Prabhupada doesn't mention anything about the four regulative principles. Because they're a rock and roll band after all. You don't get to be in a rock and roll band unless you break all the four regulative principles simultaneously at least 5 to 10 times a day. So they were hoping, and Prabhupada was being very gracious, and he was speaking to them, and I think I'm out of time. People are running away now. 8:30 is really close. I better hurry up. Anyway. I don't know, whatever. Until 1:45. Are you sure? I'm not going to get in trouble. You're not telling a lie because your life is not in danger. I don't want mine to be in danger either. Is it okay? Okay. All right. Yeah, wait. Okay. Yes. So, where were we? What was happening? Rock and roll. Oh yeah, rock and roll. Yeah, so Prabhupada was preaching, you're not this body, and, we have to, give up this false conception of who we are, and the devotees were like, okay. And then Prabhupada said, and if you want to achieve the topmost position, then you have to give up illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and meat eating. And all the devotees were like, no. And then they said that actually the rock and roll band, after a few minutes, said, thank you very much, Swamiji. We'll see you later. So they left. So Prabhupada could have compromised on the principles in so many ways, but he didn't. And he said, I am searching for a few moons. I'm not worried with all the stars. So like that, he just wants to find those persons who are sincere and serious. So Shukracharya was motivated. And he was motivated by the fact that Bali Maharaj was now basically the king of the world, the whole universe, more or less. And he was benefiting in that way. So he said, no, I don't accept. I'm prepared to accept life in hell by disregarding your instruction in order to not go back on my word, to not be untruthful, and to be obliged to the service of the brahmanas. And Shukracharya became disgusted with him. And he said, that's it. So now you are going to suffer. Your entire kingdom will be lost. You'll lose everything. So have a nice day. Sayonara. And he walked off. But Bali Maharaj went to Vamanadev and he said, so, I've given my word. Please, take your 3 paces of land. And then Vamanadev expanded himself into this universal form. And it's described that he encompassed the entire sky. And then with his first step, he covered the entire earthly realm and the lower planetary systems. And he manifested like his Vishnu form. And Bali Maharaj was standing in front of him thinking, oh my God, this is incredible. And then he took his second step and his foot reached all the way up to Brahmaloka, up to the topmost heavenly planets. And his toe pierced, right? Was it the Karna Ocean or the Garbhodak Ocean? Which ocean is it? Well, it's the top of the universe, so it must be the Garbhodak Ocean, right? No. It would be the Karna Ocean, yes. Thank you. So it pierced the Karna Ocean, and then some water started to come through this little hole, and it washed over his feet, and that formed the Ganges. And actually it's described that Lord Brahma and all the saintly personalities in the higher planetary systems, they saw his feet and you told me to go until 1:45 and you're leaving. So And they started to worship his lotus feet, and they were pouring water, and that's how the Ganga entered. So, and then he came back and he said, so I've taken only 2 of my 3 steps. Now what to do? Where do I place my 3rd step? And Bali Maharaj was like, I don't know, you've already taken everything. Where are you gonna put your 3rd step? And so the Lord said, well, you've reneged on your promise. And so therefore, you're going to have to suffer in hell. Wow. But Bali Maharaj was like, okay, if that's what I have to do. He was already prepared to suffer. And so it's described that the ropes of Varun Dev, I've never quite figured this out. I really need to figure out why the ropes of Varun Dev are so strong. Anyone knows? Any deep insights? Tarun, Prabhu, anything you know? A serpent. Okay. Yeah, so the ropes of Varun kind of captured him, and they were about to take him away. But before they did, he said, I have an idea. I have an idea what you can do with your 3rd step. And it wasn't a rude thing, Here's what you can do with your 3rd step. No, it wasn't like that. It was more like, I know what you can do with your 3rd step. And he said, what is that? And he said, you can put it on my head. And I completely surrender to you. And thus, Bali Maharaj is known as the personification of which of the 9 processes? Atmanivedanam, because he completely surrendered. He surrendered himself completely to the Lord. And he said, you already have everything, but I can give myself to you. So in this process then, and some devotees describe that this is what's also the tilak feature on the head, is the heel of the Lord, like he stepped on the head of Bali Maharaj. And then this is supposed to be like a tulsi being offered to the lotus heel of the Lord. So like this, he surrendered. And he said, because you surrendered, then I'll reciprocate with you and protect you. And I'll give you my Sudarshan chakra that will look after you. And he sent him to, where did he go? He gave him his own planet, yes? Sutala Loka, yes. So he sent him to Sutala, and then Prahlad Maharaj appeared, and he was glorifying him, and he said, the Lord has, rescued you. He saved you from the most hellish condition, because you were simply going to become proud and puffed up and attached to the opulence of the heavenly world. So, better that Vishnu stripped all of that away from you. This is actually a benediction for you. And Srila Prabhupada explains in his own life, because Srila Prabhupada was quite an affluent person. He had become quite well off, and Prabhupada thought that he would, because it was predicted when Srila Prabhupada was born that he would open 108 temples and travel across the sea and do so many things. And he thought, in order to do that, I guess I'm going to have to make a lot of money. Yes, money. And so Prabhupada was building his business and thinking, yes, with this money we'll do this. So he had the right mentality, but then Krishna took it all away. Just took everything away. And then he was just simple mendicant, living in a room in the Radha Damodar temple. And you could think, oh, poor guy, But there he is in the heart of the spiritual world in Vrindavan, looking out the window and seeing the samadhi of Rupa Goswami. And, this is the topmost place in the whole world, on this planet. And there he was. So, wealth beyond imagination. But for people who are attached to material wealth, they can only imagine. What is that? How can that? They can't even imagine. So Bali Maharaj gave all this up, but then he was benedicted anyway, and he still got to stay on his own planet, and it's described that, what was it, the 13th Manvantar, the 12th Manvantar, after that he came back and he became Indra. He became Indra and he got to rule the heavenly planet anyway. So, whether that's a benediction or not, but that's what happened. So, like that. Anyway, so many other things that can be said, but time is running out. I was given an extra 15 minutes and I don't want to go over that. So anyone has any reflections, comments, questions? Yes, Mother? Is there a microphone? Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you for a very nice class.
Thank you.
It was a wonderful description. It was very entertaining. Thank you so much. You brightened our day.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
When Krishna takes away things from you, what mood should you develop so that you can see that He's doing it for your best? Because I have friends and I saw them go through a lot of pain when like somebody they loved was just taken. And so then they develop this mood of anger. But how can you help them? And how can you help them see that Krishna actually did it for their best? Because they don't come to accept it.
They don't what? What was the last part?
They don't come to accept it, that whatever happened for their best. They're just angry at God.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough position to be God. Most people blame you when things go wrong and they forget you when things go right. It's like, when things are going good, it's all about me. But when things go bad, why have you done this to me? So, yeah, it's a tough position. Yeah, it's not easy because we're so attached in this material world to, starting with the body, that anything that emanates from this body we consider as part and parcel of me, and therefore anything bad that happens, then we can think that I'm being cheated, that something, I don't deserve this. Now, how exactly to speak to someone probably depends on the relationship that you have with that person and whatever influence you have with them, how close you are, and if you know them well enough, then you can try to help them to understand that these kind of things are happening all the time. This is the nature of the material world. It's a place of suffering, right? It's a kunta, a place of distress. That's what's happening here. And any happiness we experience is simply a momentary cessation of distress. Otherwise, there's always distress. It's a perpetual situation. So the fact that you seemed happy for a few moments, you should be grateful for that. There's always some challenge around the corner. But Krishna, He's trying desperately to bring us closer to Him. And in that way, it means that we're going to have to let go of some of the things that we're attached to here in order to step closer to Him. Or we're going to have to learn how to engage those things or engage with those people, those relationships in connection with Him. And then things become perfect. But in any way, all this is just temporary anyhow. It's not going to last. But as we were discussing earlier, sometimes when people are in a distressful situation, it's not necessarily philosophy that they need. Sometimes what they need is someone to just give them a hug or give them some support or encouragement. And then that means that the relationship will deepen because that's what they needed right then, And later there will be space to help them understand. Because sometimes things are so difficult that it's hard to see. But of course, if someone starts sinking into deep despair and desperation, just like if someone's heart stops beating, you have to use those, like, what is it, a defibrillator, just to try to shock them back in. So sometimes we may have to try to bring them back in some way, but we have to be careful that we don't drive them away further, because I have seen sometimes devotees have come and said, I was feeling really low because this, especially if they lose a loved one. And some devotee just started preaching to me, and it made me think, is there no sensitivity? Is there no, care and concern? So we have to be able to know how to apply Krishna consciousness. That's the real challenge sometimes. So, but I think just trying to be there for them and be a friend, that's probably the most powerful thing for them, and know that they can always come to you and speak, and try to be unconditional in your love and support of them as a jiva, and that gives them some hope and access into Krishna consciousness, so that if they don't drift too far away like that. Anyway, there's many things that could be said, but we're over time now, and I'm feeling conscientious that I'm breaking the rules. So, but thank you very much for your question, and you can also pray for these people, pray for them. Because if we pray to the Lord for someone, then the Lord, He hears. When a devotee prays, He takes notice, and He definitely helps, for sure. Maybe not always the way that they would like, but He definitely helps. So like that. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Lord Vamanadev Ki Jai, Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai.